we're just going to close. We've got about 10 minutes of something I've written about my father sort of the last few years. My father's grasp on the world started to slip long before his sense of humor did, which remained sharp through to near the end. In the fall of 2003, severe abdominal pain sent him to Green Memorial Hospital. A few days later, he was diagnosed with gallstones and pancreatitis. Since Green Memorial was not equipped to perform an endoscopy, the procedure for locating gallstones, he was the next morning driven by ambulance to Miami Valley Hospital. By the time they performed the procedure, he had already passed the gallstones. Because the procedure was more stressful on his body than anticipated, it wasn't until after midnight that the ambulance returned him to Green Memorial. I spent the night by his bedside. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, I awoke. He was sitting on the edge of his bed. I told him that he had a catheter, that he should not try to get up. He lay back down. After a long pause, he asked me what I thought of this place. I told him that I was surprisingly pleased with it. The doctors always keep me informed, I said, and the nurses answer all my questions. My answer was of a lesser magnitude than he had in mind. Staring up at the ceiling, past the ceiling, into the great void, he said, I keep thinking of all the work that needs to be done between sanity and insanity, but always moving towards sanity. Sounds exhausting, I said. Yes, he said, but it's very ennobling. There was a pause, and then he offered as a kind of remedy to this moral, existential dilemma. We should have this thing, he said, we'll call it a bedazzlement. You get 4 or 5 comedians sitting around in a circle, and they start riffing off each other. And the energy goes around and around until those who are watching transcend. After another week in the hospital and a month in the nursing home, he returned home. A few months later, he was deemed strong enough to have his gallbladder removed. After he was sent home post-surgery, exhaustion immediately sent him back to Green Memorial. He recovered there for a couple of weeks and then went to the nursing home across the street. About a week later, he ripped out his Foley catheter. The medical staff inserted a new one, but by that evening he had developed a fever from a urinary infection. I drove him across the street to Green Memorial. My sister Patty and I took shifts sitting by his bedside to make sure he didn't rip out his catheter again. His second night in the hospital, I relieved Patty at 2 in the morning. My wife Migua had made a poster for me to put up on his hospital wall. The poster was a large photograph